Lukashenko has just mobilized the troops. Belarusians are in a panic. It's already started in Minsk, and Poland is preparing to take the hit. Behind Warsaw, there's a shocking argument. At this very moment, Kyiv makes a super move. A brutal meat grinder from the Ukrainian armed forces on the front line. Putin's army is hastily abandoning its positions. The frying pan of revenge has reached its maximum temperature. The enemy can no longer be saved. Wow, Japan's sudden maneuver shocked everyone. This is the end. Putin was caught off guard. Tokyo is taking land from Moscow. The Turkic fist stands against the army of evil. Turkey and Azerbaijan are launching a decisive offensive. Ukraine is breaking ahead and leading the superpowers. Our drones now cover America's allies and the world bows its head. All this in our episode of Hell Point. At this very moment, sparks are already flying and Europe senses the smell of a great storm. Belarus is playing with fire on the border with Poland. In Warsaw, they are banging on the table. The response will be tough. There is nervous commotion in the offices of Minsk. Lukashenko's regime has pressed the self-destruction button. Is a new conflict really brewing at the border, and why is all of Europe closely watching this game? The nerve-wracking details are coming up in just a moment.
The Belarusian dictator Lukashenko has lost his mind once again. The old man sees enemy plots everywhere.
And now I'll demonstrate to you exactly where the planned military offensive against Belarus was being prepared from, right here.
According to Western intelligence, Belarus, acting at the Kremlin's behest, has begun actively preparing its own provocations on the border with Europe. In particular in Poland, where Lukashenko and Putin have long promised to carve out the Suwałki corridor to Russia's Kaliningrad.
Intelligence, which has already informed a number of European intelligence agencies and communities, indicates that Russia is preparing a whole series of subversive provocations and sabotage operations from the territory of Belarus against a number of countries, including the Republic of Poland, and specifically targeting official Warsaw as well.
Against this backdrop, Putin is only adding fuel to the fire by demonstratively sending more and more equipment and instructors to Belarus and establishing factories and enterprises there for the repair of military equipment and weaponry. Lukashenko himself is conducting exercises on the border with Europe and inspecting the country's defense capabilities.
These same men started a war not far from our borders.
Whether the old dictator has eaten too many potatoes or simply forgot to take his medicine, the Polish government has become wary of Lukashenko's statements.
I will definitely respond.
As a result, Poland is closing its airspace in the east of the country for security reasons.
The official government authorities in Poland have recently announced that the country is completely shutting down its national airspace for as long as 3 months. Specifically, this closure will last from the 10th of March through until the 9th of June 2026. The airspace, the sky will be closed. All of this is being done to ensure security.
Moreover, NATO forces have also gotten involved. They began demonstratively moving Western military equipment along Poland's borders, thereby showing Putin that provoking the alliance is not worth it. Even more.
Well, that's just nonsense, really. Why keep spreading it? The situation is not like that at all. It's not about the situation. In 2026, the Russians will attack the Suwałki corridor and Poland. All the more so. This is not nonsense.
Nevertheless, the Kremlin keeps pushing its agenda, stuffing Belarus with weapons, including nuclear ones. And all this, analysts explain, is because after the events in the Middle East, Putin is scared out of his wits. He understands perfectly well that if it comes to it, he could be removed just as quickly as the Iranian leader. That's why he's trying to shift the blow from Moscow to Minsk.
The Russians want to use Belarusian territory in the event of a nuclear conflict so that the strike would hit Belarus rather than Russia or Moscow.
However, it's unlikely that the bunker dwellers' elaborate scheme will go unnoticed by Western intelligence agencies.
All their strategic plans, especially regarding the use of Belarus for nuclear weapons, will ultimately come to nothing.
As for Lukashenko, Poland made it clear by closing part of its airspace that it is not to be trifled with, and even less so to provoke Warsaw into further escalation. After all, if the West so desires, the Belarusian regime could collapse just as suddenly as the Iranian one.
The southern forces of the armed forces of Ukraine broke through the occupiers' defenses. This forced the enemy to retreat. Our native land is gradually returning under Ukraine's control, live on air. Our forces have moved into an undeniable offensive. The occupiers are frantically trying to plug the gaps, but Ukrainian artillery and drones have turned their rear into a real graveyard. Watch all the latest news from the front lines right now.
The counteroffensive of the armed forces of Ukraine in the south has disrupted the Kremlin's plans for the spring of 2026. This is stated in the new report by analysts from the Institute for the Study of War.
Right at this very moment, what we are currently witnessing down in the southern region is clearly one of those strategic attempts to actively seize the strategic initiative, disrupt and alter the enemy's carefully laid plans, and compel them to react to our movements, just as our high command originally intended for this operation. And this neutralizes their advantage and strength.
In particular, due to the advance of the defense forces, the Russian military command has redeployed elite airborne and marine units from the Pokrovsk direction and Dobropilya to the southern front.
We are stabilizing the situation there, conducting counterattacks. It's a back and forth kind of war. On one hand, we are pushing them back, even carrying out counterattacks and liberating certain, though not large areas. They are trying to continue in other sectors.
But there are fewer and fewer forces left, analysts note. The Russian group, which was supposed to consolidate its positions in the winter and launch a massive spring offensive, ended up with the opposite result. There are no fresh units available. There is nowhere to get them from, and the existing forces, time and again, are being redeployed along the front line to plug gaps. As a result, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is already noting that the number of enemy assaults has decreased in some directions by almost.
This specific amount represents exactly one of two equal parts into which a single entity is or can be divided, which is commonly referred to as 50% of the entire whole. Their resources are not limitless. They are now trying to maneuver their troops because they can no longer generate forces along all 8 strategic directions as they previously claimed from Sumy to Kherson.
In recent days, this has been most noticeable in the area of the settlement of Pokrovska. There, our soldiers continue their advance. And even the fact that Russia once again redeployed its reserves here did not change the situation.
Ukrainian fighters managed to secure positions in Ternove, as well as drive the enemy out of Berezove, and likely enter Novohorivka and engage in battles for Sladke.
At the same time, Russian attempts to maneuver along the more than 1,200-kilometer front line are opening up new breakthrough opportunities for our troops. This is happening, for example, in the area of Huliapoli, which was an extremely difficult sector all winter.
And our systematic counterattacks, strikes on logistics on the flanks. In these sectors, special operations conducted by our special forces and intelligence services allow us to hold the front and destroy a significant portion of enemy troops in this sector.
Our fighters also distinguished themselves near Lyman. As reported by the 3rd Army Corps, the enemy, lacking enough assault troops, decided to advance here using an old proven method: to gather a column of armored vehicles and try to break through our defenses. The result was quite.
The entire situation unfolded exactly as one might have naturally anticipated from the start, following such a clear and obvious pattern that the whole experience felt completely, utterly and entirely predictable in every possible way. Every single piece of equipment, as noted by the Corps. As a result of the coordinated actions of the units, they destroyed a tank, 3 armored personnel carriers and eliminated the infantry there.
At the same time, the defense forces are not forgetting about their deep strike missions. However, alongside the ongoing fires at oil refineries, military targets have increasingly started to appear in the reports as well. Apparently, the intelligence gathering and planning of many missions have reached their final stages.
The main intelligence directorate published a video showing drones attacking 2 patrol ships: Okotnik, a Project 1496 M1 tug, a Project 16640 firefighting vessel, and another BK-16 landing craft. Most likely, kamikaze drones equipped with Starlink antennas were used.
At the same time, assessing the overall situation at the front, analysts from the Institute for the Study of War believe that in March, Russia planned to continue its pressure and develop its tactics. There have been actual successes near Orikhiv and Huliapol, as well as intensified attacks in the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk area. However, the blocking of Starlink and subsequent advances by the Ukrainian armed forces have clearly disrupted these plans. And now Russia is forced to abandon its major spring breakthrough.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Urgently, Japan has burst into the GRU against Russia. The moment of truth has arrived. Tokyo is preparing a bloody response for Ukraine and is putting the Kremlin in a difficult position. An explosion that has already occurred. Tokyo is cutting off the Kuril Islands. A slap to the Russian dictatorship that could knock Russia out. The ground beneath Putin's regime has shifted. A female politician will do this to the bunker dweller in front of everyone. Has the time really come for Moscow to write farewell letters to its plans? Details to follow.
Today, Japan is one of Ukraine's key partners.
In support of Ukraine, the Japanese government in Tokyo has officially allocated a total of more than $13 billion.
$1 billion in support. The main focus has been on financial aid and humanitarian programs.
Japan stands out as the geographically closest and most strategically vital member of the International Coalition Club, representing one of the world's most influential and leading Western-aligned economies within the prestigious group of 7 nations.
Even more may appear on the horizon. The government of Japan is currently considering the possibility of joining the Pearl Initiative for providing sustained long-term support of Ukraine.
We greatly appreciate that Japan holds such a leadership position not only in the Pacific region but also globally. This is significant support for our resilience, and thanks to this, and of the international order based on rules.
In addition, Tokyo is ready to allocate funding for the supply of non-lethal defense equipment. This includes radar systems, surveillance equipment, bulletproof vests, and other protective gear for the military. For decades, Japan's security policy has remained extremely cautious. But the situation is changing after the victory of the female prime minister in the elections.
I have always had great love and respect for Japan, and I will say that our relations will be stronger than ever before. I look forward to working together with you, both there and on behalf of our country. I really want to tell you that if you have any questions, any doubts at all, or if you find that you need anything, any specific services, or whatever I can possibly do to help Japan, please remember, we are always ready and standing by.
The political line promoted by Takaichi envisions lifting restrictions on the development of Japan's own armed forces. It also includes revising bans on the export and re-export of weapons, as well as a more active role for Japan in matters of collective security.
In general, most female European politicians tend to demonstrate a much deeper and more comprehensive understanding of their citizens' daily needs than their male counterparts typically do.
It is worth remembering that when Putin launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Japan renewed its efforts to assert its rights to the Kuril Islands, which the USSR seized during World War II. Over.
The Kuril Islands, they make a big fuss, not giving up an inch of their native land, yet to China they hand over territories much larger than the Kuril Islands themselves.
The aggressor state views the Kuril Islands solely as a military political asset. For example, in 2017, the Russian Federation deployed an additional army division there, which immediately provoked a protest from Japan. Already this spring, the Japanese government is preparing to propose to Russia a detailed plan for joint economic activity on the
the stretching volcanic archipelago, known as the Kuril Islands. Economic partners in Putin's Russia have already been established. It's not Japan, it's China. Without China's support, Russia would not have been able to wage war for so long. And it's clear that China is a geopolitical adversary of Japan.
Meanwhile, China continues to strengthen its strategic communications and deepen cooperation with North Korea. In Japan, they realize that in this war, thanks to Russia, North Korean soldiers are gaining experience.
More than 10,000 North Korean soldiers have been sent to Russia. Then Russia sends North Korean troops to Ukraine. They are learning new methods of warfare. Drones, artificial intelligence, cyberspace, and conventional weapons. We need to consider why they are using them and against whom. That's why I say Ukraine is not some distant problem.
For Ukraine, Japan's assistance is important, as well as the overall expansion of the circle of countries that are ready to participate in ensuring its defense capability. If Takaichi's strategy is implemented, real military cooperation with Japan may emerge in Ukraine.
of modern technologies. Perhaps even Japan lives in a different era than the one we live in. And in this sense, of course, Japan's technological assistance could be simply irreplaceable. We understand that most technologies are dual-use technologies. They can be perfectly well used on the battlefield as well.
The relations and ties that Ukraine and Japan have previously built will help in the context of Japan's new historical stage of militarization and the formation of new security alliances.
Shock in the Middle East, the patience of Ankara and Baku has snapped. Turkey and Azerbaijan are moving into a decisive offensive. This is a real checkmate for Tehran and Moscow. Erdogan has revealed all his trump cards, while Putin, having bet on Iran, seems to be risking everything. Everything. Details that will give you chills. Watch next.
The Caucasus is on the brink of entering the war in the Middle East. Turkey and Azerbaijan are preparing for a conflict with Iran and Russia.
Our armed forces, the Ministry of Defense, the State Border Guard Service, and other special forces units have been brought to mobilization level 1.
As part of the mobilization level 1 announced by Aliyev at the Security Council meeting, Baku has begun calling up reservists and the army has been placed on full combat alert. Earlier, in response to strikes from Israel and the US, Iran began firing all its guns in every available direction except towards Azerbaijan and the Gulf kingdoms. Iranian ballistic missiles were shot down over Turkey and Shahed drones were intercepted near the island of Cyprus.
Under no circumstances will Turkey leave the defense of the country to chance and will act decisively.
The political leadership of Iran, represented by the foreign minister and the president, sometimes denies the strikes, sometimes repents and promises to stop. Therefore, judging by the actions of Ilham Aliyev and Recep Dogan, no one believes the words of the Persians.
Turkey is considering the possibility of deploying F-16S in Cyprus, according to a source in the Ministry of Defense.
Fuel is being added to the fire between Baku and Tehran by the Azerbaijani ethnic group in the northwest of Iran. According to various estimates, there are between 30 and 40 million people living in territories controlled by Tehran. They are ethnic Azerbaijanis, starting from
the Treaty of Turkmenche, when Azerbaijan was divided into two parts. One part went to the Russian Empire. Most of it went in that direction. That same Iran, which we now call Southern Azerbaijan, where today 40 million of our ethnic brothers live. We also understand that modern history the last 35 years because the modern secular Azerbaijan
acts much like a sharp thorn in the throat of Iran.
Potentially, Moscow will become an ally of Tehran in its confrontation with Baku and Ankara. The Kremlin is already providing Iran with military and intelligence support.
They support us politically and on other issues as well. Military cooperation between Iran and Russia is no secret. You know, we have worked with each other before, and this continues and will continue, I hope.
The Gulf countries that are being struck by Iran are finding Russian parts and drones. But more importantly, against the backdrop of rapidly developing events in the Middle East, the value for Putin is rising significantly of the South Caucasus. Will Putin dare to open a second front in the South Caucasus? Will Baku, in coordination with the NKRU, launch military actions against Tehran? The region is heating up rapidly, and we will learn the answers to most questions very soon.